Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's session. DevSecOps Best Practices You Need to Know to Secure Your Applications by our speaker, Paresh Rathod. And I, Richa Pawar, I'll be your host for the day. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few house rules. For our attendees, the session will be in listen only mode and will last for an hour, out of which 10 last 10 minutes will be dedicated to Q&A. If you have any questions during the webinar to organizer or panelists, please post your query in the Q&A window. Also, if you face any audio video challenges, please check your internet connections or you may log out and log in again. An important announcement for certificate of attendance. Participant needs to attend the complete webinar to qualify for the certificate of attendance. Participants should fill in the survey form in the attendee's thank you email and answer the 3 questions based on the webinar, provided with the right answers within the same day. If these 2 criteria are met, then only the participant will receive the certificate of attendance within 5 to 7 working days after the webinar. About our speaker, Paresh Rathod. PhD is a seasoned technocrat, innovator, and educator. Currently, he is serving as chairperson of the European Cybersecurity Organization Group Brussels, European Cybersecurity Agency Expert Rapporteur, Athens, technology educator, innovation lead at Laurea, Finland, and international coordinator vice president at IIT EDA UK. His core cybersecurity and technical expertise lie in handling multi-million and multinational European innovation projects. Paresh Rathore has served in various capacities with project partner from Finland, the European Union, UN, UNESCO, NATO, Cyber Defense, International Court of Justice, NSA, and LEA law enforcement authorities. He has also served as senior professional advisory board member and chairperson. Apart from this, he also serves in the Global Advisory Board at EC Council. Furthermore, he has been part of specialized interest groups and many other international organizations. Parish's scientific innovation and scholarly work has been presented at multiple seminars, workshops, international conferences, journals, and forums, and has been recognized by relevant authorities. It's noteworthy to mention that his development work and projects contribute towards the goal of cybersecure societies. So without any further ado, I would like to hand over the session to you, Paresh.
Thank you, Richa, for such a kind introduction. Of course, since last many years, I work as a technocrat in various different projects. My interest is to contribute in the project and continue the development. First of all, I would like to say everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are, because this is a global webinar, so I don't know where are you sitting. I'm sitting in Helsinki, Finland, so it's around 4 o'clock in the evening, and you may be somewhere in USA or in India. So let's dive into the subject. So today we are going to actually talk about DevSecOps best practices. Basically, if you are a developer, and I'm sure majority of you will be interested in development as well as operation. So we try to find the best practices, and I will share with you some amazing practices we have used in various innovation projects. When we talk about innovation project, it's something you find something new, right? In particular domain. So we'll talk about those things. Also, I'm involved with many advisory board in software firms, so I know how the software engineer is working. And by the way, I'm actually originally an application security professional. So I started my IT career as an app security. Okay, let me see, is the slides is working or not? Is that okay? Seems it's working, right? So we will see about the best practices, and we will pick up very specific niche area. It's called penetration testing. Now, why penetration testing is important in DevSecOps, we will see along the way. Let's go to about the speaker. Richa has already given my introduction. I'll talk about my work later on. So let's not focus on me. Let's focus on you, because you are coming here to learn about how to secure our apps using DevSecOps. And that's what we are going to focus here. So we will start with the context, because very important to learn why are you doing this. Remember, this was one of the biggest challenge, because when we talk about the developers, engineers, Engineers are very good doers. They do very good work, but when it comes to delivery, the managers, right? The operation people. So many times there is a gap of why. So we will understand the context. Why are we actually learning this topic? Second, we will see about the concept of DevOps because this is an evolving field. So it's starting from the traditional way to DevOps and then DevSecOps. So we will see that. We will also see the advantages and best practices. And finally, we will actually continue digging on the penetration testing and how penetration testing can be used in DevSecOps. And the very final session is something I really love is a discussion with you. So I encourage you to ask the question. Meanwhile, the last week has been very difficult for me health-wise. So I'm not in best of my health. So if you see me sipping my green tea, please don't bother that. Next. So the first thing is when we are learning about why, you will be surprised. Right? All the data I collected is from this year, so very latest data. Whenever it's an older one, I will talk about these are old data, but these are latest data from 2021. As you can see, the key risk in cybersecurity, as you know, cybersecurity becoming one of the very buzzing word. It's nowadays not a buzzing word. I will explain you why it's not a buzzing word, but it's a reality. So as you can see, many different key trends. There is something is common here. You will find two different common things, and we will talk about that. Next, when you see the Gartner has released data that majority of company now they realize that cybersecurity is the reality, is no more in the air somewhere. So they have to give focus, and they are actually given focus by budgeting, spending money. What is the spending expectation? 150 billion. Right? This year, Gartner is expecting 150 billion US dollar is going to be spent on the cybersecurity. So it's a high priority. Why it is high priority? Wow, cybercrime is 6 trillion. Right? It's one of the biggest element of losing money. Right? This is a direct loss to any company who is suffering cyber attacks. So 6 trillion. And when I talk about the scale, let's consider India as a country. So yearly budget is even lesser than 6 to 12 fold lesser compared to 6 trillion. Right? So here we are not talking about small country. We are talking about top 10 biggest economy. Right? So it's a huge. Now, IBM is conducting research since last 17 years. So the research data is coming from the real incident reported into authorities and various forums. So these are the declared data breaches. And what are the data? It says one breach can cost, its maximum cost this year is 4.24 million. These are we are talking about the big breaches. Now the researcher conducted research. So especially now the innovative firms, they are conducting third-party research, and they have found 75 different decision makers across the globe, different fields. So telecommunications, software, services, education. So they found a different audience and they asked a question about application security. They say in the last 12 months, is your firm or your application has faced any kind of vulnerability or any kind of risk? The data is huge. It's 70-30% ratio. 70% firm has confirmed. Remember, when we talk about cybersecurity, we work with the law enforcement authority and various innovation projects. Many firms, they even not bothering to report because it's a reputation loss to them. So they are not reporting. So these are reported data, 70%. What are the key threat attacks? So when we talk about vector, so bot attacks, so you know, the attackers are now automizing their attack mechanism. Web apps vulnerabilities, when you're developing web apps, I will add one more, it's also in mobile apps, because now when we talk about web apps, it's not only web app, it also includes mobile. So very huge, 41% people say software supply chain attack, API, employee error, and account takeover attack. So many different vectors of attack. And now we are coming to the why. This is why application security is not only important or essential, I would say it's a critical, right? And I'm sure you will agree with showing this latest data that is very, very critical. Now, application security is challenging. Why it is challenging? Because it works in three different silos. So we have a software engineer and developer who is developing an app. Then we have a DevOps professional who is deploying, implementing, and then we have a security testers. So the testing professional who is testing the application. So all these three is working in a silo, and this is one of the key challenge. Why it is happening? Because as you know, software and application never been actually invented by considering security as a base. So it started with the water flow model. As you know, traditional IT models are based on the, what do you call, sequential. So once sequence is finished, for example, requirement gathering is finished, then you go to the designing phase, then you go to the development, then you go to testing, implementation, and maintenance, right? This is the traditional water flow. Now, one particular stage or step is not communicating with other one. But eventually in 1973 onward, the security came into picture, because until then, security was not considered at all. Right? But now the security has been considered. The first IE paper was published in 1975. But that was also a sequential one. They say security is one of the part, right? Not inside, but outside. So it's another stage, as you can say, the testing. So testing phase were completely different. So all these phases were working in silo, but then the modern mobile application and users of social media and users of IT has been expanded so exponential. So everybody has to now think about security. If you consider the WhatsApp, one single app, you can see the security phases is going through various different stages. So we came up with the new idea called DevOps. It's initiated in 1990 by telecommunication field, but since last 10, 15 odd years, it's becoming very popular, not only the developer community, but also in operational or delivery community. So it's a combination of technology, people, and processes, right? So it's on all different layers. It's a compound of development and operation, right? So now the development and operation is not working separately. They should be a good marriage, right? They should be combining together. So DevOps is the union of people, processes, and technology. So it's a very holistic. I consider this is a very interesting phenomena or a framework. Now there are benefits. What are the benefits? Let me allow to give a simple example. When we talk about development, let's say an application has been developed. Now the delivery manager or operation manager, he want to deliver it very quickly, right? So developer is developing, delivery manager want to deliver it quickly. So there is a wall of confusion, right? Because the delivery manager say deliver it quickly, developer says, wait a while, it's a big work, right? When we are developing something new, it takes time, effort, and resource, so it requires a longer time. So how can we solve? DevOps is actually solving. So it says bringing business, culture, and technical benefits, right? All three layers benefit. Greater agility. When you are actually developing something in agile in a smaller phase on a scrum base, it's much more agile, right? So you are not actually waiting to finish the complete application, but you are delivering on a cumulative basis. So it's an onion base, or let's say onion model, where you are continuously developing, delivering, developing, delivering. So it also improves working culture, because communication gap has been now removed between the developer and the operation manager. And I would say the whole stakeholder, anybody is involved, including the customer. So the practices is improving, and the business performance is also improving, because you are no more actually waiting longer time to deliver your app or your services, IT services. It's quicker, right? So performance is also improving. Faster solution and customer satisfaction is also faster, because imagine if you have one security bug, now you have to actually work on a smaller scale on the small component which you are developing, so it's going to be quicker to deliver, right? So such satisfaction in customer is also higher. Greater flexibility, adaptability, and engagement. When you have a big cycle, for example, you have a traditional waterfall, it takes a longer time. So engagement is also silo. Now, DevOps works wonderfully when you are using tools. So tools are very important. Why tools are important? Because tools are helping you to fasten your process. Not only fasten your process, but it will also ease up your development work and delivery work. So DevOps tool chains are the set of tools, different tools, for example, Jenkins, Azure, right? So different various tools available, so you use it. So it is helping you into planning, creating, verifying, packaging, releasing, configuring, monitoring, and version control. I'm not going through all these things. It's coming from the Gartner Market Trends report. All this material is taken from various different good, excellent resources, and resources is given in the slide. So you can refer it later on, of course. Now it comes the DevSecOps. You may remember the Sony hack. You may remember the WhatsApp security difficult. You may remember the Facebook security difficult, right? That's why they were using DevOps, but they were not considering DevSecOps. Now the new concept came. They say security is not working in silo with certain teams, with certain audience, but it's working integral part of all these phases. Right? This is what is happening in the DevSecOps. So security practice is a business of everyone involved there. So when we talk about the delivery manager, when we talk about the top management, DevSecOps says the security is part of every single person involved in this one. So it's a business of everyone. So how can you do? By integrating application security principles and various different best practices into software development and operations. Not only that, it also considers teams can be deliver new software and services at agile speed, right? When we integrate security, because you are no more waiting for the security team to separately check this application. They are part of the entire process. This is how it works. So basically, we have a DevOps, which talks about the plan, coding, build, and testing as a development phase. Then we go to the releasing this app, deployment, operational, and monitoring. So this is an operational, or let's say delivery cycle. Where is the security? Everywhere. So as you can see, it's outer layer. It's part of everything. You can also put as an internal layer. So there are many researchers who also put on a both phases. I would say it's everywhere, right? It should be going to the cross sector or cross phases. Security from the foundation. So one of the key successful security mechanism is the security by design. So researchers are actually working since last 25 odd years, but now it's part of the practice. Security by design. So when you use DevSecOps, this is a key mechanism you can implement using DevSecOps. DevSecOps also offers you seamless integration of security, right? As I said, it included in all the phases with all the people, with all the processes. So it's a seamless security. As you can see, when you consider these three different circle development, when you talk about plan, coding, building, testing, when you talk about operation, it's a release, deployment, operate, monitor. Now is the security. When all these three things is marrying together, it's a happy marriage, right? It's called DevSecOps, and it gives you amazing outcome. What kind of outcome? So you get advantages. Key advantages I'm going to talk. There are so many advantages, but I have picked up few key advantages to you and your team and your organization. It's a secure coding practices right from the beginning, from the foundation. So the key benefit is early identification of any threats, vulnerabilities, or risk. So you identify that. As we talk about seamless integration of security, it increases not agility, I would say flexibility, as well as the performance. So faster solution, quicker innovation. So when you want to innovate something new in your application, for example, let's consider the same example of WhatsApp. So when WhatsApp is actually integrating a new feature, then it's much more quick innovation, it's faster. Smooth collaboration. So when we're removing, let's say, the barriers between the teams, barriers of communication, cooperation, so everybody is working for the sake of your application or your IT services. You work to give the best experience to your customer. So the get results are greater in the speed, I would say also brings the customer satisfaction. Possible automated build, right? So you are actually automating process because DevSec and DevOps both are encouraging us to automate the process. Let me allow to give a quick example of bot attacks. So bot attacks are automate attacks actually on your application, on your website, on your web application, on your business application. So the attackers actually automate their attack. So you can also automate. You can counter react them by implementing your security mechanism. For example, introducing IDS, as you know, intrusion detection system. It has a penetration testing part of IDS. When you automate it, you actually free up your resources. Now you don't need your expert over there. You don't need other IT resource. You automate. So when the attackers is automate the attack, you can also defense with automatic, right? So it free of assets, you can use those assets for other purposes. Next, enforce organizational governance. So when you are actually say that your organization or your application is comply with some authorities, comply with the security posture, so it also increase the credibility. Sorry if I'm speaking too fast. I have to go a little bit slower, right? Next, high quality of software and higher customer satisfaction. As we say, when you are giving a good customer experiences, customer is also actually happy to spend, happy to cooperate with you, happy to give you feedback, so you are continuously improving. When you are introducing automation and when you are having a better kind of a cost saving ideas, you also actually increase the profit. And lastly, increase agility, lean principle. Right? So lean is considered you optimize your processes. So lean is also actually used in DevSecOps. And finally, flexibility and continuous improvement, because your cycle is smaller scale, it continuously going. Now the webinar is finally focusing on the best practices. What are the best practices? Sometime we have noticed during our innovation project, when we actually study the teams, they are working they are never actually manifesting that they are using this particular framework. For example, agile framework. So when we discuss with the software developers, when we ask, are you using agile? Are you using the traditional SDLC, or are you using, for example, Scrum? What are your mechanism? They are very hesitant to say. Right? So the first thing you can say when you're talking about best practices, manifest. That your team is manifesting or your organization is saying that we are implementing DevSecOps. What are the advantages? When you manifest, it's actually going to the all layer of your team, right? The development people, the resources you want to implement. So it's very important. You manifest it clearly. You are implementing DevSecOps model. Right? It also gives you an advantage because everybody is now thinking on a one single solution, and you have a full trust that this solution has been evolved since a long time and it's successfully possible. Second, enforce policy. So when you are using DevSecOps, you are actually enforcing certain policy. Policy number one, you are saying security is actually everyone's business. Right? It's not only security professional, not only testing people, not only management, but it's part of everyone. So your policy is very clear. So any person working in your team, he knows it's a big stake. He is owning a big stake where he can be part of, let's say, the security complete cycle. So it's everyone's business. Second thing, you train people. You train right from the beginning. So it's a bottom-up approach, right? So many times, many applications, when we have investigated the Sony with law enforcement authority, we realize actually it's a top-down approach. Right? We can succeed when it's a decentralized and bottom-up. So everyone from the bottom, your team to the top when they say, okay, they are involved there. So you actually customize your training according to their need. So you have to say the training is actually business of everyone as well. Third benefit, I would say stage number 3, right, is the best practice is security by design. So when you implement security by design, you are manifesting that your application or your IT service is actually attack aware. It knows that in the future you're going to face any attack, right? So it's a robust one. So right from the beginning, so you actually implement security by design. Next one, the next best practice is you threat modeling. Threat modeling is actually helping you to identify vulnerability. It also implement because in your development and operational stage, you are actually implementing the vulnerability management processes. So threat modeling is helping you to be more robust, secure application. Next one, real-time security monitoring, right? As we talk about the attackers are automizing their attacks, so we also automate our security defense. So it's a real-time monitoring. When you implement introducing detection system, you automate that, right? When you introduce the automatic penetration testing, you're automizing. When you implementing the security mechanism, protection mechanism, you automate. So automate is possible in the repetitive attack scenario. So we automate this. So this is the third best practices I would like to share with you, your team can implement. The next one is actually you integrate the penetration testing. I'm a big fan of penetration testing. My key cybersecurity expertise is on penetration testing. We will talk about different kind of penetration testing. I will also talk why it is so important. Right? So your team actually embrace this. There is a different model of penetration testing. We will see that. I've given you details. So when you see this later on, when you revise, when you want to refer this presentation or webinar, you can read through all this detailing. I already explained you here in the previous slide. Right? So it's repeating here. Now the key checklists. When we talk about implementing DevSecOps, there are key checklists. I would like to focus on these 3. So I would put in the high priority. Development, culture. When we talk about culture, many times we don't realize. For example, I work in the Nordic country. I work with the European projects, innovation project, international projects, where it's a bottom up. So when we talk about developer, his saying is really, really important, same as the manager, right? Let's say the delivery manager. So culture is very important. So we're removing these barriers of communication, collaboration. It's a strong collaboration. So everyone knows they are very, very important. This is one of the key research finding we have actually found in our innovation project. When we improve the culture, everything is improving. Right? Your environment is also improving. So the third key area is the environment. Then the coding. While you are coding, I will talk about the workflow later on. While you are coding, it's also very important. Your API is also, and then the last one is the protection mechanism. These are the key checklists when we are implementing DevSecOps. So we have seen the key area, then we see the key checklist. Now we talk about the penetration testing, because this webinar is fully focusing on how to leverage the benefits of penetration testing in your app's security, right? Using DevSecOps. So as you know, what is penetration testing? It's very important to learn. So penetration testing is coming from the military or army, or I would say the defense sector. Right? So something you penetrate. You probably have seen the yellow tabs. Right? So when you go somewhere, if there is a security incident, they are putting the yellow tabs. Right? Let's say the security professional, they are putting yellow tabs. So it's actually you are not allowed to go. It says you are not allowed to go there. There is a danger. Right? So somebody is penetrating. So somebody is going beyond that one. Right? So that is called penetration. Penetration testing is you are conducting this kind of testing within your application. You are seeing and finding a vulnerability. Where is the vulnerability? Right? So you find the vulnerability. Sorry, I will take a small sip of my tea because my throat is. A sip of tea helps, right? So let's continue. So penetration testing is something you are actually checking for the vulnerability, you are checking for various threats, and also checking for various risks. Different type of penetration testing. One is white box penetration testing. I will explain you the concept. Let me allow to list them first. Black box penetration testing and a gray box. When we talk about white box, the tester, whoever is a security professional or the tester who is part of your team, who knows the environment, not only environment, he also knows many different things. So it's a byway. So the development team, operation team, they know that the penetration testing is going to happen, right? So it's a very open. Black box, it's something hidden. So basically you can outsource. So when we talk about penetration testing on demand, it's mainly actually the black box one, because when you do that, then you know how this your application is secure considering the outer factors, right? Because whenever you talk about threat, risk, or any kind of vulnerability is always an outer. Of course, when you talk about security by design, there is also an internal vulnerability. But when you are implementing DevSecOps, you consider that you have counted all the non-vulnerabilities risk while you are developing your application. So black box is something, let's say, unknown, and the gray box, you combine both. So you decide, for example, when you are considering the penetration testing is going through different phases. One is the planning, right? So you are planning your penetration testing, reconnaissance. Many times we call it as a, let's say, information gathering or footprinting. Then the next chain is the scanning. So you can use different tools like Nmap, Nessus, various different actually exploit tools is available, scanning and exploiting. Then the next one is you gain the access. Once you have access, then you exploit, right? How far you can go. For example, if you are actually accessing an uh, financial application, then you say, is it actually possible to actually exploit, or let's say move the money around, right? Something like this. Is it possible to actually give, let's say, admin access? Is it possible to get database access? So different kind of access and exploitation. And finally, you maintain this. While you are maintaining this access, you don't want your developer or security person or anyone to know this, right? This will actually manifest them that there is a possibility that somebody can actually penetrate, they can stay within your environment, but you don't know they are maintaining access. You don't want to, or you don't allow this to happen, right? How can you? What are the advantage of penetration testing? So basically the advantage of penetration testing is you know the vulnerability and weaknesses right from the beginning. Second, you find the flow and you consolidate your security right from the start. You simulate the attack scenarios, right? So you know this kind of attack scenario can be possible, this kind of danger can be possible. What are the disadvantages? You need an expert, right? So you need an expertise. You need different resources. It's an expensive because it's expensive because you need different kind of resources. You not only expertise, but you need to use different tools. You need to use different processes. So it's a resource, I would say, resource draining process. Not a full prep, right? So you cannot say once you finish your penetration testing, your application is fully secure. And as we know, because all of you are actually, let's say, part of the DevOps or DevSecOps, you know, it's impossible to say that your application is fully or 100% secure, right? You can say your application is highly secure, but we can never claim this 100% secure. Penetration testing in short agile sprint, right? So we can actually leverage the benefits when we actually put this into the shorter agile sprint, because then it's quicker to deliver, right? So continuous penetration testing, I would say in both stages, not only development as well as the delivery. While you are doing this, it should be actually on a shorter sprint. Solution, you use DevSecOps because it's a way of penetration. When you It's an interesting vibe because you are not only combining the traditional penetration testing scenario, but you are also combining the latest, let's say, application security best practices. Right? For example, static application security testing, known as SAST, dynamic application security testing, known as DAST, interactive application security testing, known as IAST, and then the RAST. Right? So you want to actually combine all these. Now, when we talk about the development, so there is a workflow. So in a development phase, the workflow is the coder. For example, coder is actually developing or recording something in a system, right? When he is handing over to the other person, right, it's called changing. So the other person is also knows. So it's called analysis phase, that these are the changes is actually made there, so they know if there is any bugs there or not. So it's an early identification of during the analysis. Testing environment. So when your code is actually moving to the next phase of testing environment, right, you're actually it's security configuration is applied to the system, right? So you are making sure whatever the security mechanism you have actually planned is implementing right from the coding. Then the toast automation, as we talk about, wherever it is needed, you can automate your testing. And finally, deployment monitor, and you continue this cycle. Security practices you want to implement in your DevSecOps. Right? So when you talk about the planning phase, you actually implement the threat modeling and the policy level. Then you go to the static analysis as we talk about SaaS, then the code review, then the next one is penetration testing. I would rather say penetration testing is right from the beginning, right? So when you implement right from the beginning, actually you start from the coding phase until the testing as well, right? Then we continue into the next phase is the compliance validation. So once you have implemented penetration testing, so at least you are assured that you have a minimum layer level of the security there. You are ready to release, right? And the deployment, when it goes, then the auditing is there. So if you are using any auditing criteria, you use into deployment. Then finally, you're using the threat intelligence. So you use the IDS, IPS over there, you use the automate tools, and you actually monitor the security there. And finally, monitoring and maintenance. Right? So these are the best practices in the DevSecOps. Now the final one, this is coming from one of my courses, and then we call it the 5 phases or 5 stages of penetration testing when you implement the DevSecOps. First, collaborate, right? So an entire team is collaborating with the tester. So tester is a part of your team. So collaboration is one of the key elements. Then parallel pen testing, right? As I say in the previous phase, because many security best practitioners or let's say DevSecOps expert, they say you're actually phasing out this one. I would say you start from the beginning, as the second one says, parallel penetration testing, right? So engagement right from the start. The next one is realistic plan. So you have to identify what is possible, what is not possible. So you have to having a realistic plan. Right? So you have to be considerate, because when you think that you're gonna having a complete secure application right from the beginning, it's not realistic. Right? It's impossible. So you have to be realistic about this one. Next one, synchronize and then streamline. So you are actually combining dev, ops, and the security and all this. So all of these three is synchronized. And finally, more automate. I would say you more automate, you free up your resources, you actually make your security robust. So this is the 5 level of penetration testing best practices. Have some challenges, technical challenges with my microphone and video. Please bear with me. Finally, various tools is available, but what we are planning right now, maybe our next webinar can be actually demonstration of this tool, maybe showing you the real scenario, and that's why I'm keeping this actually not sharing with you right now, right? One key aspect we would like to share with you is on-demand penetration testing, right? So DevSecOps have a different layer of tool set. One is the integrating tool, automation tool, right? OWASP has a wonderful tool. So they have actually the commercial tool, as well as open source. So normally when I will work with my teams in innovation project as well as the development project, we start with the open source tools because it's available to you, for example, Jenkins or other tools. So you start using open source and then you move to the commercial tools. Then you also realize you identify whether these tools are helpful to your app or your IT services or not. On-demand penetration testing is becoming very, very popular because when you actually do on-demand penetration testing, it's actually you outsource, it's a black box, you also see as an external factor. And so on-demand testing is you normally do with the consulting firm or outsourcing them. Finally, and also whenever you need it, right? So on-demand is whenever you need or your team is needed. Finally, cyber ranges used to be only in the Department of Defense, but now cyber ranges is also coming into the mainstream. So cyber ranges is giving you small scenario, and in this control scenario, actually you experiment these things, and finally you implement into your real development environment. I would actually encourage cyber ranges as well. Right. What next? So you have learned, for example, different penetration testing way of doing. You have learned how you can use into DevSecOps. Now, what next you can do, right? We have also promised you that in our next phase, we will actually give you the real demo, real scenario. We will show you that how you can do the, let's say, on-demand penetration testing. We will show you some tools. I will also bring some practitioners with us. And then next, what can you do? EC Council has a wonderful training program. So they have a penetration testing certification. Not only that, they have also the application security certification. Now, this application security is actually a part of the case. Right? So when you are doing this one, actually the benefit is, it depends whether you are actually with the .NET one or you are a Java developer. So both has a different certification. So you choose the best suitable to. Next, because I'm an educator, this is something at my heart, because when you work with the big projects, it's actually the big money, the big delivery. But when you work with the education, you are actually helping on the grassroots level, because these are the people, they are going to be the tomorrow's developer, tomorrow's manager, they're going to make the big impacts. So I'm an educator. So when you see the education, we have a degree program in the cybersecurity, and we are offering this certification training there. It's a part of our curriculum, including ethical hacking. So next, you can join this training program. I would like to thank you. Now is the interesting session, because now we will have a discussion. If you have any question, you can ask me. I would also like to talk about me. So if you want to connect with me, you can connect on a LinkedIn. You can see my research work. Most of my research work or publication work is around the projects we are working. So you can see on a Google Scholar, you can connect with me on IG or also visit my website. Thank you very much. We will now go on to the discussion phase. Richa, over to you.
Thank you, Paresh. Thank you so much for such an insightful, informative session. And it was a very interesting webinar, and I hope it was worth your time. For all the attendees, this session is in sync with the EC Council certification CPEN. EC Council Certificate Penetration Testing Professional is a specialization certification that teaches you to perform effective penetration tests in an enterprise network environment. With CPENT, you will cover advanced penetration testing tools, techniques, and methodologies most needed right now. It's 100% hands-on, challenge-based learning on live practice, cyber range, and multidisciplinary network in real-world configurations. If you're an ethical hacker, penetration tester, forensic analyst, cyber threat analyst, network service administrator, red team engineer, SOC analyst, security administrator, this specialization program is designed to upskill you. CPEN program is designed with the latest multidisciplinary curriculum and practice on dynamic live cyber ranges to help you master your penetration skills. Evaluation is fully online, remotely proctored, performance-based practical exam. Award the industry recognized CPEN certification and the prestigious LPT Master. If you're interested to know more, kindly take part in the poll that's going to be conducted now.
Yes. Education is one of the very, very key. So if you join any of this program, actually you can also join our program. and then you learn to the next level. So I give you some key, let's say the takeaway. So this will help you to start with. This is not something complete, but at least give you the best practices you can implement into your team and in your organization. Which I cannot read it, so you have to actually speak your question, right?
No, I will take the questions for you. We have got a lot of questions. So the first question for you, Paresh, is automated testing through fuzzer in DevSecOps? Paresh?
Hello.
Yes, I'll repeat the question again. Is
Yes.
automated testing through fuzzer is in DevSecOps?
Remember, when you are using a DevSecOps, it's a processes you are talking about, right? So many of the tools, for example, Azure tool is actually implementing DevSecOps as a part of the process. So it's a very, very, I would say, flexible one. So even the FUSO you can use with the DevSecOps. There is a many debate between the expert that you can use this tool or not. But my take is a bit different here. It's you have to see whether this process is a part of your development team or your organization, or whether this tool is even useful to you, then I would definitely recommend that. Right? I know there are plenty of even debates within researchers. There are many researchers, they prove you cannot use this tool, you can use this one, because DevOps is a more flexible model. Right? Remember, when we talk about other models, they are very, very rigid model, but this one is a flexible, so you can definitely use here. If you want to see any scenario, you can connect with me and send me a message. I will also share with you case studies where Fuzzo has been used in DevSecOps. Hope
Thank
it
you,
helped.
Paresh. Thank you so much. Moving on to the next question. How to automate and secure application and review code?
Now, as you say, there are two big players. One is a Microsoft, second is the Apple, right? So they influence highly into development. Currently, I'm offering two different application courses. One is Introduction to Mobile Apps. The second is the cross-platform. Right? So there are technological, I would say, the subtle warfare, right? So basically, they are driving. Now there is a third key player is Amazon. So Amazon is also introduced, let's say, coming up with the different development tools here. Right? So what was the question, Richa? Can
The
you repeat the
question,
question?
yes, I can repeat it. How to automate and secure application and review code?
Yes. So for example, Microsoft has actually acquired Git. Right? It's a strategic, they say it's a strategic move. When you see that previously Git was not integrated part of the Visual Studio. Right? Now when you see and go to the different IDE or development environment on Apple and the Amazon, they have a different set of integrated development environment. So of course you can use, for example, Git as a part of your Visual Studio or your development environment. You can use different plugins even as a part of that. So this is one of way you can do that.
Thank you, Paresh. Moving on to the next question. Which could be a good way to go for a conventional approach to DevSecOps?
Uh, can you please explain more?
I can ask Aldo. Its question has been asked by Aldo. So I
Yes.
can reach out to him and probably we can explain better. Moving on to the next question. It's by Edward. Is there any evidence out there that proves vulnerability can be caught early in the process?
Absolutely. Right. So it's possible. Right? So even let's say when they talk about the 0-day vulnerabilities, when we talk about the application is attack aware, you can create a scenario right from the beginning. Right? We did this. So for example, we have a European Union innovation project called hybrid threats. So we are creating different scenario. So some of the scenarios that never happen in the real life, but we are considering this. So you can create a scenario right from the beginning. So in future, whenever you face this kind of vulnerabilities, you know that it's already there. So you cook with this, how to deal that. So I
Perfect.
say
Thank you so
absolutely.
much. Thank you so much, Paresh. Edward is Varang, sorry, is asking, are there any trending pen testing tools which can be used currently?
Penetration testing, right? So when we talk about the traditional one, I will start with the nmap. Nessus is available, right? Then there are new set of tools available. Most of them are proprietary, but they are also claiming, we have not tested, but they are claiming to use as a part of the DevSecOps. So I will start with the open source one.
Perfect. Uh, so moving on to the next question. This question is from Varong. I would like to know how to integrate security awareness during software application development cycles.
Security awareness right from the beginning, right? This is what we talk about. I think he's talking about security training at all level. One of the way, for example, when you're talking about, let's say, what is the role of the tester, right? So many times when we talk about tester, the development team, they always think about the development testing, right? So the coding testing, they never think about the security testing. So when we have a team meeting, we can actually run a very small seminar on how the security tester is going to work in this team. So this is a beginning. So basically you start with, let's say, brainstorming with your team, and then finally, if you have a plan awareness campaign, then you can run it.
Thank you,
Remember, all
Paresh.
the solution I'm giving to you, I'm not claiming these are the best. I'm saying these are the possibilities, and different at different level we have actually tried all these things. We never ever claim, neither in an innovation project or neither in a production level, that this is actually foolproof security practices. These are better than the previous one. Next question, please.
Thank you, Paresh. Uh, Sachin is asking, what are your thoughts on selecting open source tools selection while automating pen test in early phase of development process?
Does it pay? Is asking that, do you actually consider to use open source software or not, right?
Right, right. In
Yes,
early phase of development process.
I do. Right? I'm very, let's say, personally, when you ask Sajan, to me, my personal opinion, I will always start my development or any kind of endeavor when we are talking about IT services or application development with the open source available resources, because it minimizes, let's say, resource drain, and you have a more flexibility. Even by just Googling, when you say DevSecOps tools, there are so many different options available. Why not to start with the open source? It's available to you. You have a possibility to contribute as well, because many of the open source projects, you can even uh, part of the development of these open source tools, so you can consolidate. Hope it helps.
Thank you, Paresh. We'll take two more questions. How to incorporate pen testing during the development of application?
How to? Can you please repeat?
Yes, I can. How to incorporate pen testing during the development of application?
How to integrate, right?
Yes,
This is
incorporate.
something, yeah. Because when we talk about, let's say, penetration testing, normally we talk about the testing phase onward. Right? So let's say the your application or product is available, or let's say it's in a releasing phase, or it's a working, or it's a functional. My take is different. I would say when you are actually planning a penetration testing, remember the penetration testing phases, right? So you have planning, information gathering, footprinting, and then so on and so forth. So I will start with the scenario creation right from the planning phase in DevSecOps. Then you can also consider while you are developing this scenario. So your application is developed accordingly. For example, authentication. So mainly authentication is planned with, let's say, username and password. You can actually think about scenario to having, let's say, 2 layers or 3 layers of authentication in your application. So it's a part of penetration testing. Next, please, Risa.
Thank you, Paresh. Moving on to the last question. Uh, what is DevSecOps and how it can be included in web application?
Yes. Basically, DevSecOps is a debate between, let's say, the processes or a framework. I would say it's a framework. Right? So we used to having an agile framework, but DevSecOps is something you can actually integrate the agile, you can integrate the Scrum, you integrate the best practices available there in the process. So as you know, if we go back here, so it's a process, but process comes with the complete framework. When we talk about framework is a mechanism, or let's say the methodology. So in a planning, coding, building, testing, releasing, deploy, operate, monitor. Remember the old way of doing it was in a silo of a requirement specification, design, development. So I would say it's a process and the framework. Someone say it's methodology, but let's say consider as a framework, as a bigger, higher level. Hope it helps. Richa, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Paresh. Thank you so much for answering those questions and for the great presentation and knowledge shared to the global audience. And it was pleasure to have you with us, and we're really looking for more and more session with you. Before we could conclude the webinar, would you like to give any message to our audience?
Yes, my audience, I would like to say that many times people ask me because they are a developer and they say how to move to the cybersecurity field. I would always say to them that you are in a really, really good position because now you know the development processes, you're well aware about the delivery and operation processes, you have a good now to move toward the cybersecurity. Remember, next 10 years is going to be cybersecurity consolidation. Because currently we have evaluated, let's say, 25 different projects. In 25 projects, only 20% projects are actually considering security as part of development. Majority of them are focusing on developing, delivery, developing, development, delivery. So you will have actually the good, you will put yourself in a good position to having also security as part of this. You probably know Microsoft has hired actually cybersecurity professionals. Most of them, they're going to be working as a developer, as an operation. So it's an evolving field and grab the opportunity. Thank you very much. You can connect with me on IG, LinkedIn, and even on my website.
Thank you again, Paresh, and we look forward for the Cyber Talks 2022 with you, and we wish you good health. And before we conclude, I would also like to thank all the attendees who have joined the webinar and took part in the poll and Cyber
Yes.
Talk series. And with this, we will end the webinar, and you all may disconnect the line. Thank you so much.
Last word, Richa, before you close, I would also like to thank you for organizing and our audience as well. Sorry, my health was not best of best, so maybe next time we go better.
Thank you so much. I
Thank you.
believe audiences really enjoyed the webinar.
Thank you, Richa.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Sukant.
Have a great
Thank
day.
you.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. Bye.